I'm Maggie Wolford. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruitment and Admissions at Binghamton University School of Engineering and Applied Science. And what we're going to do to get started is I'm going to introduce you to some of the other Dean's Office staff who are participating in this session, and then we'll be getting started with the overall session as well. So let's start with Lisa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lisa Gallagher. I am the Assistant Dean for Research and Graduate Studies in the Watson School, and I just wanted to welcome you today. Thank you for coming.
Okay, and Monica?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Monica Majors, Assistant Dean for Academic Diversity and Inclusive Excellence. I'm here today to answer any of your questions that I can. I'm glad that you guys are considering Binghamton and know that when you come, it'll be a place that you're welcomed with open arms. So we're glad to have you today.
All right, thank you guys so much. So just a brief description of the event. As many of you know, this was originally intended as an on-campus event, and with the situation that's going on in the world, we've decided to move it virtual, which has allowed us to open it up a bit more. I know we've got a number of international students participating today, which is great. To let you know, what we're going to be doing, in case you didn't check the agenda, is we're going to have a brief presentation about life in Binghamton and searching for housing and moving to Binghamton. And part of that session is going to be a representative from our city's Visit Binghamton office, which we're very excited to have her here today. And then after that, we'll be doing a session about funding opportunities. And then from there will be a departmental session. So for students in particular, that would be where you can really ask your departmental questions. First, we're going to be doing a session about life in Binghamton, a discussion of housing, transportation, and things to do. And for this, we're very fortunate to have Judy Hess from Visit Binghamton with us today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Judy.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you guys for tuning in today. Just want to say that you've picked a wonderful community to come to. The world's a little upside down right now, but we know we're going to come on the other side soon. But our community is very warm and welcoming, and there's so much to see and do in the community that I think you'll be really happy once you get here. I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you guys, so let's see if this works. I've been practicing. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Okay, perfect. So as Maggie said, I'm with Visit Binghamton, and we are the official tourism agency for the entire county. There's a team of 3 of us here right now, and we do our best to welcome people to our community every single day. What our mission is to bring people into the community, whether it be for a sporting event or a convention or a conference, or obviously all of you that are here through Binghamton University. We're so glad to have that connection, and we're so proud of the way that Binghamton University has grown, and the reputation as well as the size of the university. And we really do think that we're one of the premier destinations in the area. Obviously, we're not an LA or a New York City, but I think once you start looking around, you'll see that we have everything that those communities offer, but on a smaller scale, which makes it a little bit easier to navigate. So we encourage people to come, but it makes it easy because we have so much going on into the area, as I mentioned. We are also part of a tourism region called Central New York. So these are some of the advertising campaigns we do on a regional basis, but kind of getting back to the county. So this is like a snapshot, and you're probably looking around and going, oh my gosh, this is all really crazy. I'm gonna start with the giraffe there, and I'm sure many of you might have heard about 3 years ago, Animal Adventure Park went live with a video cam of April the giraffe having a baby giraffe. And that became an international sensation. And so it's this animal park about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from the campus. And they've got over 100 species of animals. It's a very interactive, hands-on place to go. So I highly recommend if you're looking for something to do, and if you want to meet an international YouTube superstar. April's there all the time, and she's a great hostess. But then you'll see things like apple picking. So we have places where the apples are picked for you, but we have apple hills or other places where you can go out and go berry picking, apple picking, depending on the season. So it's kind of nice to get out there with nature. we have some amazing sports. We have an AHL hockey team, the Binghamton Devils, affiliated with the New Jersey Devils. We do also have a AA baseball team, and this year we will be hosting the Eastern League All-Star Game, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. So we're really excited about that. We do also have a world-class symphony. We have the Tri-Cities Opera. We have Broadway shows. And then if you look in the middle of the screen, there's something that kind of looks like colorful mushrooms. I can't think of any other better way to explain that. But what that is that's actually a video clip or a picture of an event called Luma. And that event takes place in September, and it's a projection arts festival where they literally take projection art and change buildings into works of art. So it's kind of cool. The building really literally disappears and something comes out of it. It's a super exciting event. Again, it's got international appeal. It's going to be September 10th and 11th and 12th this year. So I recommend that you guys do that. It takes over downtown Binghamton, but it's an awesome event. And they do have a rain date, but it never rains in Binghamton. Everyone else can clear that up for you. But anyway, so, and then kind of looking a little bit further, you know, in the video that we could see, but not here, there were some really good pictures of like fall foliage and the hillsides and things like that. We have so many great walking trails, hiking trails that really help you get out and clear your head, get back to nature, and it's an amazing thing to do. And then there's a cute little picture off to the right of the screen, like in the middle, of a little girl on a carousel. Our community has actually 6 carousels in the community. This summer, 4 of them will be open, as a couple of them are being renovated. But they're really cool. I highly recommend that you take a trip and see one, especially the one at Rec Park. They've kind of got some images from Twilight Zone on the carousel, and there's a great park in the area there as well. Now, this is something that all students need to know, where to eat. We've got over 200 restaurants. Downtown Binghamton is mostly local restaurants. There's only one chain in downtown Binghamton. The rest are all locally owned. You can get any type of food. You can get it in any sort of an atmosphere. You do have to try a thing called a speedy. I think that's kind of mandatory. We're kind of known for those. And there's a couple of places that you can get them. You can even get them in the Union. Lupo's actually has a place in the University Union. But you know, whether it's Mexican or you like steaks or burgers, whatever it is that you like, you can get it. And then the cider mill, the great big picture of the donuts. Cider mill is open in August until about November. They make fresh pressed cider, great donuts, and all sorts of things. So a great place to get a snack when Insomnia Cookies closes down.
Real quick, Judy, there was a question that had come through. I was wondering if you could just speak briefly, a lot of those activities that you went through, like how expensive are those to participate in?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Fortunately, a lot of our events are actually free. Luma, the Great Big Projection Art Festival, is free. Our carousels are free. The other things, I think the admissions are like around $10, $12, so they're not really all that much to go and participate in. And then things like, obviously, the berry picking, apple picking, that's all based on what you pick. So that is kind of up there. But a lot of the things in our community are really inexpensive or free. Now, of course, the opera, the Philharmonic, and the Broadway series, they do have admission prices, but nowhere near what it is in a larger city. I think prices start at like $35 or $45. So you can experience that. And of course, there's so many things on campus as well. I don't want to minimize that. Some of the acts that come right onto the Anderson Center and to other places on campus are amazing. And the pricing would probably even be a little bit better for you. I know I'm talking fast, and I know I only have a short time, so I kind of want to focus on this slide a little bit. The one thing that I will recommend for you guys is that our website is visitbinghamton.org. Now that you're Binghamton University students, you know how to correctly spell Binghamton, not like the rest of the world, but visitbinghamton.org. And when you go on there, you can find everything. You can find a list of events. You can find our restaurants, and they're broken down by city. So let's say you are living in the Johnson City area or in Vestal or in Endicott. We still have listings of restaurants that are nearby you, and then of course in the Binghamton area itself. We do also have a series of videos on our website, which I think would be really cool for you to take a look through, and you can learn more about the community as well. And when you guys do come on campus, we have included a copy of our travel guide that Maggie's going to have in a packet of information with you, and that lists our parks and our attractions and our larger events and things like that as well. So it's another really good resource for you. Okay, that's the end of my, oh. You guys want to, do I have time for a quick video?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Judy?
Do I have time for a quick video?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we're gonna play one. We'll play Luma.
Judy, we are still seeing your PowerPoint as a note, so you want to make sure that the video is in the screen that's being shared.
Okay, I think it is. Can they hear it?
No, we're
Okay,
still just seeing
then
the website
guys,
and promotional
I don't
items.
know how to undo this because it is in my
Screen. So, but there you go. Just kind of go to our homepage at visitbinghamton.org, and when you see be part of our story or catch our story, there's a series of like 9 or 10 videos that you can take a look at to learn more about individual places in the community. Are there any other questions? Was I supposed to cover housing at all?
No, I'm going to be doing
Okay.
that.
Okay, good.
So if anybody has any questions for Judy, if you could please send those via the chat. And Judy, I'm going to take back the screen share authority.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Happy to be a part of this. Welcome to Binghamton.
Okay. So as was mentioned, the next section of this is about housing. We do have a resource called the Off-Campus College that I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of. If you go to the Binghamton University website and search for this, it should come up automatically for you. But this is wonderful, especially for students who are outside of Binghamton, who are looking for housing options. This was actually a resource that I used when I was looking at coming to Binghamton. When I accepted my position here, I didn't have an opportunity to come to Binghamton just to be searching for housing in advance of needing to start my job. And so I came here and I used the off-campus housing search. I know Judy was talking about Luma and other things to do in Binghamton, so some of that is listed here. There's also information about off-campus safety, but we're going to start with the off-campus housing search. So if you go to this webpage, it gives you a bunch of different resources, including a local area housing database. So, I mean, obviously you could be using things like Craigslist and whatever to be finding housing, but these resources that are on the website, these are landlords that have been vetted. They're places that we have had people sort of verify that they're safe and good. There are, of course, all of these other, apartment searches that you could be doing, apartmentguide.com, things like that. There's information about renter's insurance because you do have to have renter's insurance. There's different information about forms that you might need to submit for that. But when you're looking for these different resources, if you go to the housing registry, it brings up this whole thing. So you can either be searching for a housing option, or you can actually post about one if you are aware of something that's become available. So when you're doing the search, you can be specifically looking for housing, or you can be looking for roommates. Maybe there's already a group of 2 students from, let's say, for example, the University of Mumbai who are here in Binghamton, and they've just completed year 1 of their program, and now they're looking for additional roommates because their roommates were their seniors and have now graduated. So you have these options for searching for housing or roommates. We're going to start with the housing search. There are, of course, as with all websites, some people can do promotions, and so some of these are advertisements for different housing communities that you could look at and be a part of. You can certainly do that, or you can exit out. There are a lot of different search tools that you can use here. You can do a rent range here at the bottom. You can be searching for a particular area. You can also do that via the map. And then as you're looking at each apartment, It gives you a lot of different details, including the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, the rent rate, things like that. This is a really wonderful resource and website, so I would definitely encourage you to check that out when you're looking for things. One other thing I'll mention, especially for those of you who maybe have not been to Binghamton and are not near enough to campus to know about this, we do have a bus system that runs in the city. And so, you might be looking at some of these housing options on the map and thinking like, oh, that's way too far from campus. I don't want to live that far away, things like that. But actually, when you're looking at these resources, they can actually, most of these places would have buses that are going to them. So certainly downtown Binghamton, for example, there's a lot of buses that run from downtown to campus. And as a student, that bus is free to you. You use your student ID to get access to the bus. So you can see there's a lot of housing options here. If you were to look in Johnson City, there's also a lot of students who live in the Johnson City area. And so, most domestic students do have cars, but we have a large number of international students who worry about being so far away from the campus. And I would just say that's not something to be too worried about, because as I said, there's this bus system available to you as well. The other thing that I was going to share here is, as much as there are websites and resources and things like that that can be a big help to you, there's also the fact that there are other students that you can be reaching out to. So to start with some of the more popular ones, we do have a large number of international student groups. You can see some of those listed here, and we're constantly encouraging newly admitted students to connect with these groups. So I know we have a large number of students participating today from India, for example. We have an Indian graduate student organization here, the IGSO. And if you connect with them and say, I'm a woman coming from Pune, I don't know about roommates, and I'm looking for housing options, they actually do a questionnaire typically where they're going to connect you with other people who are looking for roommates. That way you can meet in advance of coming to campus. They'll give you suggestions about housing options, good communities, good landlords. This place is very near to the cinema, or this place is very near to the grocery store, different things like that. And the other thing would be that, especially for those of you who are applying from industrial and systems engineering, there is a formal ambassador page. And so if you go to their website, and just to sort of show you how you would get there, you're going to be doing the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences webpage, down to System Science and Industrial Engineering. And then I believe it is undergraduate that they have, yes, their student and alumni ambassadors listed here on the side. These are by country. So you can see we have a large number of countries represented. So if you're a domestic student and you're wanting to get connected to a current student who's here at Binghamton and maybe ask them about housing options or courses or whatever, this is a really great resource for you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can check the chat and see if there's any questions there for us to address. It looks like Monica's been handling that a bit in the chat already. Thank you so much. I know we do have a lot of students who are very concerned about cost, especially with regard to rent. The cost of living in Binghamton is very affordable, especially compared to some other major cities. 12% below the national average, I believe, is the number there. If you go to our website, most of our students are spending an average of $550 per month to about $850 per month, and that's for rent, food, going to the movies. Like, that's their full cost of living. So that's something that you might want to know about. If you do have more specific questions about things like renter's insurance, like I just saw that come through, it's going to vary based on where you're living. I know that the place where I live currently, I pay renter's insurance, but it's through the same company that I have my car insurance. So I would just encourage you to check out the website. If you have any trouble finding information on the webpage or getting connected to someone from those offices, you can always reach out to me on email, and all of you should be connected to me on email at this point. And I'm happy to sort of follow up with that or see if I can find the information for you. Monica, I was trying to scroll through. Are there other things that came through the chat that you think I should address while I've kind of got everybody?
Sorry, I was muted. No, but a few people just asked some more questions about the areas they should live and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. So again, especially when you're looking at areas to live, I would definitely encourage you to be talking to people who are current students. You know, a couple of years ago, for example, I know there was a student who was sending me a lot of stuff on WhatsApp, and they had found this apartment. It was newly renovated and really beautiful, and the cost of rent was low, and everyone was very surprised about it. But then when we looked at it on a map, it was because it was over a mile away from the nearest bus stop, which makes it not very appealing to students who don't have a car. So if you're talking to current students, whether it's the ambassadors, the IGSO, the regular graduate student organization, anything like that, they can give you some good advice on that. When you're looking at off-campus housing, more often than not, you are signing a lease or a rental agreement. And everybody is different, every landlord. Some people want just the first month's rent in addition to some kind of a deposit. Some people want the first and last, things like that. Everybody is a bit different. So I would just encourage for you to stay or to get connected and check those. As I said, with regard to area, we do have a lot of students who live downtown, a lot of students who live in Johnson City, a few less students who live in places like Endicott, which is where I first moved when I lived here. But again, part of that is also just transportation. There's regular buses that run through Johnson City and downtown Binghamton to main campus constantly through the day, where Endicott, there's quite a few less buses. And so for me, that was fine because I was driving, but that may not be as suitable for everybody. Now we're going to go to our next session, which is how to apply for research, teaching, and graduate assistantships, and how to fund graduate school without an assistantship. So we're going to start with Lisa Gallagher. And so Lisa, if you want to get started.
Thank you all for coming. I know these are difficult times, and this is usually one of the more common questions we get, is to talk a little bit about how to pay for going to graduate school. And hopefully this presentation will answer a lot of those questions for you. And if it doesn't, please use the chat and we'll be happy to dig a little bit deeper. But just to start out, this is a view of campus. I think that you've seen that in the video that was shared earlier. This is probably in May or June. It's just gorgeous on campus. So I think a lot of you probably have already asked yourself this question because you're this far along. But why would you want to go to graduate school? And these are just, I won't read all these, but these are probably some of the things that you considered and realized it's important for your personal circumstances to do that. And graduate school, I mean, when each of us may have a slightly different answer. For me, when I went to graduate school, it really was about, this was a long time ago, but it really was about, what do I want to do in the future? And this would give me an added credential that would make me eligible for a lot more opportunities within organizations. The other thing too is I really wanted to travel. I went to, I have an MBA and I had a sort of a specialization in international business. And so when I was applying for jobs, I was looking to go anywhere. I love to travel. So think about what you want to do if you haven't already, and these are some of the reasons that are most important to most people. Yours may not be on here either, but beyond all this, the top one is greater earning power. So that's a big one. So again, thinking about going to graduate school, this is Don Asher. He is someone who has come to our campus several times to present about how to fund your graduate your graduate studies. And his advice is, first make that decision. If this is something personally that you want to do from a professional standpoint, and also the personal satisfaction of learning more, make that decision and the money will follow. There are lots of different ways that will happen. So typically the types of support that are offered at universities and at Binghamton, I'm speaking really from the context of Binghamton for all of us here. Merit scholarships. Every department in the Watson School is going to be looking at your academic credentials And number one, that gets you admitted to the school. And number two, that's what they're going to be looking for when they are considering a student to be a TA or a GA or an RA. Now, when those happen, so a teaching assistant is really someone who would help with maybe homework, grading, and could be doing some teaching for the faculty member. A GA is one who is more, GAs often come with new faculty as part of their startup package. So the work can vary quite a bit. It could be working in their research lab, it could be helping with their courses. So that's a little more varied. A TA is very specific. Research assistants are those folks who actually are in the lab and helping specifically with a faculty member and moving their research forward. And there could be lots of different ways that manifests itself. I know that we have quite a few research assistants that they would, if you talk to them about their experience, it would vary based on what their faculty member is interested in. And then the last one are grants and fellowships. And in order to really consider those, and I think Cassie will talk a little bit more about those later, it's got to be, those are very specific. They could be oriented towards, say you're a woman in STEM, or maybe you come from a particular area within India. The Goswami Scholarship is one that's very, very specific. So those are the kind of things that also exist. And what you would want to do is just, and again, Cassie's going to talk about that. You'll be able to look and see what the opportunities are. But in terms of the assistantships, the TAG and the RA, typically those include a full or a partial tuition scholarship. So that actually pays your tuition and you get a stipend on top of that. And typically for a TAGA at the master's level, it's $10,000 stipend and the tuition scholarship. Sometimes some departments will split those up to better address some of the needs in their particular department. So there could be a half-time TA appointment. So again, it would be a partial tuition scholarship and a partial stipend, but those do exist. So this one is if you are currently a working professional and your employer is looking to invest in you by having you continue your education. That is something that some employers are willing to do, and that would be a function of looking at your own, usually that starts with human resources if you are currently a full-time employee. So you just want to understand what those options are. We, in the local community, we have a couple of the larger companies who do fund or do support their employees in getting a higher education. And again, you just want to review what the benefit is, what package they would offer, and do they give you a little bit of a break on your time commitment for work so that you can attend the classes. So in that situation, usually, as I said, you want to go to human resources. So loans typically are a common way of covering your expenses as well. So these are just some types of loans. The Federal Work Study loan is really for, a lot of these loans are for domestic students. International students probably have similar opportunities in their countries. You know, a bank loan, maybe there could be something at the government level too. It all depends on what the arrangements are in your particular home country. The thing about the loans too, you hear a lot about people or students coming out with a huge amount of debt after going to graduate school. And I did a little bit of looking. I don't have a slide on this right here, but it, as everybody can imagine, it varies by if it's a private institution, a public institution, and that's pretty much it. And then master's and PhD. PhD is a longer program, but when you get to that point where you are, they call all but dissertation, you really only have to take one credit continuing. So for the longer term, your tuition costs will be down. But my point is, there are public institutions, typically it's a much lower obligation to seek a loan for covering your tuition, because again, Binghamton, as I think that we've talked about a little, we'll talk about more, very low cost tuition, and living in the area too, it's a fairly low cost living expenses. Maggie talked about that a little bit more. I'm originally from California, and I've been out here a very long time, but when I even look at what my family is paying for the cost of living in San Diego and Long Beach area, it's ridiculous. So we're very fortunate, and there's a lot of resources here, or there's a lot of things to do, fun things too. So I'm off topic here. Let me keep going. So another way is you can pay your own way. It is possible that some of it is tax deductible. You can also get campus jobs or community jobs. So for most international students, and I don't know what the mix is in the audience, but I'll talk to both. So campus jobs, for your first year, you'll need to have a campus job if that's something that you're going to do, because you need to have, they call it a residency requirement. You have to have a certain amount of credits under your belt before you can look at jobs off campus. I'll talk a little bit more about campus jobs and then community jobs as well. So when I was a graduate student, I had a couple different jobs that I supported myself through graduate school, and you do what you need to do, and you take advantage of the opportunities, which we'll show you about in a little bit. So with regard to funding opportunities at Binghamton, so the TA and GA appointments in the Watson School, we have about 100 of those, and those are spread across our 5 departments. Some departments are larger, so they get a larger allocation. Our RPAs, those are really funded by our faculty who have active research, and that number continues to go up. I was a little conservative on the 150 because I think the last report I got, it was closer to 200 RPA appointments. And what those, in order to, I'll talk a little bit more about how you would find out about those. We also have SPUR, which is a New York State funded program that allows students to kind of work in an internship type of environment with local industry. And we have about 15 of those per year. Those again pay a stipend and your tuition. So on-campus jobs, we have, in the last year, we've centralized all of the job listings. So there's one place that you would go to find out the jobs that are on campus. And as an example, Maggie works with 3 graduate students that help in our recruitment operation. And they're all 3 of them happen to be international students, but so that's one office on campus, or one office that is, we have 3 students who are currently employed. And across campus, usually Watson students, because they're technical in nature, are very much sought after. So big question, how do you apply for any of these? And this is a point that we have to really repeat several times, just because there may be misunderstandings about that. Other universities may have different approaches, but for the Watson School and for Binghamton, there's no application. As I said at the very beginning, all students are considered by virtue of applying to Binghamton. They are merit-based. So again, our faculty are looking for top students to fund in the TAGA or RA categories. So again, there's no application process. Just by virtue of applying, your application is evaluated by our faculty. I know some students have asked about when they would find out if they're offered a TAGA or RA. I'll talk first about the RAs. So research assistantships, our faculty get grants funded all the time. There is no set date when they get them. So those are rolling. So an RA appointment or a request can happen at any time. For TAs and GAs, the big period is usually in the fall semester. We hire a lot of students, also in the spring, but it's not as much. So that can happen at any time from the moment you're admitted all the way up until the time that you arrive on campus. And what that means is, say you were offered a TA appointment, maybe by March, April, May, it all varies by department. And then when you get to campus, one of the faculty who just recently got a grant says, you know what, I would really, your skill set really matches what I'm doing in my lab. I'm going to make you an RA, and suddenly that TA appointment becomes available. So somebody who'd come to campus is there maybe the week before classes start, a TA opportunity could become available as well. So there's not any set timing associated with these. We try to get them out as much as quickly as we can when a student has been admitted. But again, each department is a little bit different. If you have any questions further about this, you're welcome to contact your department directly, but please bear in mind, there's no application. Everybody is considered, and it usually goes to the very top students. It's so, by nature, they're quite competitive. And then below that, so the scholarships, grants, and fellowships, this is something that Cassie can get into a little bit more, but these are just some websites that we have recommended to students in the past. And one thing to keep in mind, you never should have to pay anything just to access a scholarship website. That usually doesn't mean they're a credible organization. So this, I'm actually, I'll just speak to this briefly, but then we can hand it over to Cassie. So as I mentioned before, all on-campus job listings are now centralized, and it's through Handshake. And once you are admitted to Binghamton and you have your B number and you're given access to a lot of resources, you can go and start looking at these, the listings, the job listings. And what we have been told many times is usually by May, mid-May or so, that's when they're mostly going to be populated, because as students graduate, and as I said, there are 3 students that work in our office. Once they graduate, they will then, that position then becomes posted. So by waiting a little bit of time to look, you're welcome to look at any point, but that's when you're going to find the more robust offerings. And you can apply for them while you're still wherever you are. If you're in another country, or if you're in New York State or Pennsylvania or California, you can apply before you show up on campus. So the next bullet is really our external scholarships office, and they have a database that you can access as well. And that's the link down there. Hopefully it's, I don't believe it's changed. But one thing we have heard many times is there are a lot of scholarships available, and oftentimes there's money left on the table, so to speak, because there are so many opportunities, and students don't necessarily go down this path to look at what external scholarships might be available. So that's a really good resource, and you can explore that. And that Cassie will talk more about that, and I guess I'll leave it for her because this is her area of expertise. So I think, yep, that's all I have for you, and I will turn it over then to Cassie.
Thank you, Lisa. Cassie, are you good to go? I will just make one note while Cassie's getting her presentation ready and unmuted, which is with regard to the Handshake system. You will have access to that once you have paid your admission deposit. And then you have your PODS login, which is the login information that you need for pretty much every system at Binghamton. So that would be going that. And then I see there's already questions about external scholarships, so I will hand things over to Cassie.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Cassandra, or Cassie. I work with External Scholarships and Undergraduate Research Center. I am a recent transplant to Binghamton from the Midwest of the United States, and so I will say it is a great place to be. I'm really enjoying it here, and I'm really excited to share some opportunities with you. So a little bit about our office. So we are External Scholarships and Undergraduate Research Center. It used to be 2 different offices. We are now 1. So we are not just here to serve undergraduate students, but our office, we help find, fund, and share research and scholarships and all sorts of other things. For graduate students specifically, we can help you search for funding. We do have the SOAR database, which Lisa was talking about. We are actually redoing it currently. That is on my list of duties to do. And we're going through, you can search by graduate student opportunities, but you can also search by your field and major. We recommend searching for things potentially outside of your major if you are having difficulty finding something within your major. We also can help apply for awards. So there are many prestigious awards that oftentimes come with money. And so we help you through that application process. And I have some specific ones that I've pulled out for Watson students, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. And then we also help with student research assistance. So if you come to Binghamton and you're working on your master's thesis or your dissertation and you're like, I could really use some help in the lab, feel free to reach out to us and we can get some undergraduate students in contact with you. So they're always willing to volunteer to help students, especially because they're looking to connect with graduate students and get some more experience. So if that's something you're interested in, we can always do that too. And then also I wanted to talk about graduate assistance. So Lisa talked about graduate assistance for faculty, but our office actually has a graduate assistant. I also work in the McNair Scholars Office, who also has a graduate assistant. And so those are other opportunities that may not be in your particular field, but they're more day-to-day job activities and outreach activities that do come with an hourly wage. And those are usually posted to Handshake as well around the May timeframe, just because students are graduating or receiving their degree and moving on. So those are also kind of a different path of graduate assistance. Okay, so I made this little flyer for Watson students, and it kind of talks about the different sources of funding. So there obviously, Lisa talked about the internal kind of department and university awards. We deal mostly with external awards. So things like the Paul and Daisy Soros Award for New Americans. We deal with a bunch of undergrad ones as well. We have our SOAR database, but then we also have links to other ones such as ORISE and Pathways to Science, which also have similar listings. They all are extremely large databases and will have thousands of entries. So it may take some time, but the sooner you start looking, the applications might not be open, but then you have them there in front of you so you can speak to that. I'm seeing there's some questions possibly. I cannot see because I'm sharing my screen.
I just shared the flyer with everybody.
Okay. Thanks. One thing I do want to stress is when you guys eventually get to campus or even before campus, feel free to reach out to us. We're doing virtual student meetings right now with our advisors in our office. And we can kind of talk to you more specifically and find out individual things. Because like Lisa says, a lot of our scholarships and opportunities are very specific, so you might have to be a woman in STEM who is maybe a minority or from a first-generation family or anything like that. And so it's easier for us if we get to know you a little bit and talk about your interests and your career path. And so we can point you in the right direction of things to look for. And you can simply, on the bottom of the flyer, there's our email, our phone number. Will probably not be answered at the moment since we are not in office, but feel free to reach out to us with any questions. But everything is on our website. And I just want to make sure that I walk through everything on my notes. And so you'll see on the side of the flyer here, specific opportunities that I have kind of pulled out. You can simply Google these opportunities. The Churchill Scholarship, Ford Foundation Program, all of these are graduate level opportunities to get funding. A lot of them, if you shall receive one of these, you can take it to any accredited university. There are, and then that way, obviously you're in Binghamton, so you can bring it here to Binghamton. Then there are some other ones that I will say are, and so when I say internal for like the Churchill Ford Foundation, this is important. You must apply through our office. So some of these scholarships require an endorsement from the university, just to make sure that, we can make sure that you have everything you need and we can set you up to be as successful as possible. So you can come in, meet with an advisor. We'll walk through application process, any letters you need, things like that. We'll walk you through that process to make sure that you have everything you need. And then external ones you can go ahead and apply to on your own. No need to come to us. But if you feel that you need help, or you're like, I'm not quite sure that this is what they want to see, or have any questions, feel free to bring your applications in. We'll read them. We're here to help. And so those ones tend to be more specific. So the DOE Computational Science Graduate Fellowship, that one I believe is for domestic students only. And there are similar ones. I'm trying to think. I believe that is all I have. Again, meet with us, meet with your faculty. The new money is coming up every day, and so things change. So visit the websites and feel free to reach out. I think my next one is, these are just kind of how to get in contact with us. Once we're back on campus, you can come visit us. We're in the University Union. But otherwise, our website is there, and then also our email.
Thanks so much, Cassie.
Yeah.
So everybody, I'm sending a couple more documents that were shared by a representative from our Fleischman Center and their connection over at the Visions Federal Credit Union. If anybody has any trouble accessing these documents, the other thing I'll do, and I'm just going to do a quick screen share so I can show you where these are. That page where you registered for this session, the Graduate Open House page, if you scroll down here, we added a section called Materials for Participants. So the flyer that Cassie created is here, and then there's also a couple of documents from that other office. These are not going to be staying up here indefinitely because we know that things will probably need to be updated and things like that, but they will be up there for the next week or so. So those are accessible to you. The only other thing I was going to mention before we sort of move to any pending questions would be the graduate assistantships that Cassie was talking about that are a bit more office positions. One other place you can find those besides Handshake is if you go to the graduate school's webpage. This is one of these things where you sort of have to click through multiple times, so I'm just going to show you how that works. You would go to the graduate school's webpage, and then under cost and funding, there is financial support here on the side. And from there, there's assistantships, fellowships, and scholarships. And under assistantships here, you can see that there are professional positions, graduate assistantships in the graduate school, the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Division of Student Affairs. Each of these you would be applying for very much like a job. They're going to have their own job description, their own sort of, if they're looking particularly for somebody from computer science or student affairs or whatever it might be. So you want to make sure that you check those requirements and that you fit those needs. I think Cassie mentioned that she did this as well, but this is actually how I funded my master's program. I had a graduate assistantship that was in our graduate school. And so I was basically a staff person, but only working 20 hours per week. But it did cover my tuition and a stipend to live on. So I'm going to stop that screen share. If you could just speak briefly, Cassie, before we close out your piece. There's questions about, what is available to international students, for example, and if deadlines have passed for fall 2020, like when should you start looking for future terms?
So the deadlines unfortunately vary with each program. So there tends to be a heavy load of applications in the fall for the next coming fall. So 2020 scholarships and awards mostly have been wrapped up. There is still a few that open, in February and end in April. But it just kind of depends on what ones you're looking for and then if you're eligible for those ones. A lot of the undergraduate ones have come and gone. Graduate students tends to be a little bit more, there's a little bit more wiggle room in my experience. but it really is specific. And then as for international students, unfortunately, there's not as many opportunities, but there are opportunities out there. It just takes a lot more finding and looking for, like I said, Paul and Daisy Soros work for New Americans. So that one, I'm not quite sure what the visa status has to be, but I do know that it is actually for non-domestic students. And there are others. It's not my specific area of expertise. I actually work a lot with low-income first-gen students, and so I have a lot of those. But other faculty, or not faculty, staff in my office kind of work more specifically with international students. And so if they email us and let us know kind of, oh, I'm an international student, I'm looking for these things, we can get them set up with the right person.
Excellent. Okay. And on the flyer that Cassie had shared, as well as I showed you, that flyer is available on the website. There is the contact information for the office. So I don't see anything pending right now. So we're going to go ahead and let you go, Cassie. Thank you so much for your willingness to take some time to talk to us on the Saturday. And I'm sure that you're going to be getting some connections from some of our students here and going from there.
Awesome. I look
All right,
forward to it.
thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
So the last portion of this session is really supposed to be an opportunity for you students to be asking questions of your respective departments. So I do see that we have faculty who are logged in from across our different departments. So we have, I'm just going to go through kind of quickly and say who's with us today. We've got Ayun Ko, who is an assistant professor in biomedical engineering, Les Lander, who is the graduate director for computer science, Mark Fowler, who's a distinguished teaching professor and director of graduate admissions for electrical and computer engineering. I have not seen Sang-Wan yet, but Sang-Wan Yoon is an associate professor for industrial and systems engineering who is supposed to be joining us. And for mechanical engineering, we've got Paul Surratt, associate professor and director of graduate studies. And finally, we have Hiroki Sayama, professor and graduate director for system science. So I know that this could get very chaotic very quickly.
Could I just add that I've invited, hi, everybody. I invited Madhu to join us too. Madhu.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we also have Madhu Govindaraju, who's with us. That's awesome. So as I said, I know that this could get very chaotic very quickly. What I'm going to request everybody do is, again, if you can, please keep yourself muted unless you are actually talking. Oh, yay, Sang-Wan is here. Great. And so students, you can send questions via the chat, or if you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself and ask a question over the audio feed. And then the respective faculty member can jump in with an answer. So let's get started. Oh, sorry, Mark, that was me. You were unmuted too early, so let me allow you to put your video back on. There you are. Okay, and you should be getting something. Yep, there we go. Okay, great.
Okay, I'm good to go.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate, again, everybody being so flexible on this. If everything does get too crazy, we do also have an option to put people into breakout rooms based on department, but I thought that we would sort of see how that went to start with. There is a question for you, Paul. When are decisions on RA and TA appointments made from the mechanical engineering department?
So that is happening right now. It typically is sort of the second half of March when those decisions get made. And so basically for PhD and masters, we generally deal with the PhD lines first and then the master's lines after that. Our department by far has more PhD lines than master's lines. And they're generally dealt with first, the PhD lines, and we are handling those basically right now. And then the master's lines we'll be dealing with shortly too. So just as I'm not sure who's on who's applied to the mechanical program. It's very important at the PhD level that you've made contact. If you're a PhD applicant, you've made contact with a faculty member before we can process you for admission. We need to have an advisor that you would be connected with at the PhD level. That's not necessary at the master's level. You don't necessarily, even if you intend to pursue a thesis, you don't need an advisor to be considered for admission, but the PhD level you do. There's no additional forms to fill out to apply for a TA position. All admitted students are considered automatically, but the positions are assigned competitively. We have more demand than spots for TA lines. But again, there's many more at the PhD level than the master's level. We're handling them right now. And we appreciate everyone's patience as we work through those applications.
Les, it looks like the same question, RATA appointments, has been asked about computer science. Would you mind addressing that?
You're muted, Les.
Oh,
Les is muted.
I couldn't see him,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm trying to keep the bandwidth down. I would like Madhu to jump in and answer that. We are looking at PhD applications, so the higher priority.
Yeah,
Madhu,
so
do you want to?
right. So the PhD applicants, just as Paul just mentioned, we are reviewing them and considering them for scholarship. For master's students, typically the scholarship is given after we review their first semester performance here.
Thanks, Madhu. For Hiroki and Sangwan, the question had also been asked for SSIE. So it's kind of a multi-part question. When are advisors assigned? When are decisions on RA and TA appointments made? And then I think this is going to end up being a larger question for everybody. Do you have any sense of how, if at all, the COVID-19 situation might be reducing those opportunities or changing them, the RAs and TAs, I believe?
Yep. Okay. There's someone, do you want to say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of the academic advisors, I believe that most of the time when students are coming into the department, and they actually tend to set up a meeting with the different faculty members, and then students are kind of approached to the advisor, and after that, advisors agreed to be their thesis and dissertation advisor. That's how we start. So before they're coming into the department, we don't make the necessary assignment, like some student will be advised by some faculty. But if the students want to have any kind of the course requirement advice, so they can actually talk to the graduate directors. So we have two programs, ISC and SS program. So if it's the ISC student, they can talk to Dr. Sarah Lam, and the students in the SS Systems Science program, and then Dr. Sayama can be providing the necessary advice for the courses. So in terms of RA and TA, at the moment, I think we don't know when we're going to make a decision because there's a lot of changes making. Department is making a decision on the TA assignment. Probably toward the end of the spring semester. And then if someone is selected for the TA, and then they will be notified by emails, and then they will be assigned to the TA. And specific course assignment will be given when they're coming into the campus, like sometime in August. So that's what the process is. In terms of the RA, I think the department will actually collect all the resumes for the students and then make them available to the faculty member. If the faculty members wants to hire some students from that new coming students, and they can actually approach the students individually. So that's what the process is. In terms of the COVID-19, we do not know at the moment. I think this is actually a really bigger decision. But once we found out what kind of situation that we're gonna up against, I believe all the students will be notified. So Dr. Sayama, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, that pretty much covered most of the stuff. I think one thing I should perhaps add is that many of the coursework that we provide at the SSI department are online. So we hope that even under the current situation, our educational activity is going to be continuing. So hopefully the potential impact of this disease to the TA lines is going to be the minimum. That's our hope.
Thank you, Hiroki and Sangwan. And for anyone who's curious, Hiroki is actually in front of our newly renovated engineering building with our virtual background, which is awesome. So I know we weren't able to do the campus tour today, but that'll give you a little bit of a sense of one of the facilities at campus. Les, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's not snowing in Binghamton right now.
It is not.
No.
No, it's actually been very warm the last few days, and I'm starting to wonder if I need to mow my grass. So things have been changing quite quickly here. There are a couple of questions that came through the chat that are a little bit more general, so I just want to address those really quickly. Of course, if you're coming for a master's or even a PhD at a university in the US, or if you're coming to Binghamton, you're looking at what you're going to be getting after you graduate. What are the job prospects? All of that kind of thing. So for master's students, a bit more than PhD students, we do have 2 very large career fairs that happen every year, one in September, one in February. These bring in hundreds of employers. I should mention that we have a dedicated Watson Career and Alumni Connections office. They will help you get your resume brought over to a US format. They'll help you to make sure that you're organizing your skills in a way that really highlights your capabilities as an engineer or a computer scientist. Your resume should look different than someone who studied English or business or whatever. So they'll help you with that process. They also bring employers to campus throughout the year. So there's a lot of opportunities there. They're also constantly doing workshops on professional development, how to negotiate salary, different things like that. I've also seen a couple of students asking questions about particular courses that you need to take, especially if you're going to do a certain area of concentration. So I will mention that many of our departments do offer areas of concentration or specialization. Some of them are listed very clearly on the website, the courses that are available. Others are a little bit more open on the website, but my recommendation would be to connect with the faculty over email, probably, for setting that up. If any faculty have anything else that they want to throw in on that, that would be fine. Someone was asking about work experience, certainly not required, but it can help your chances with an RA or TA. With regard to COVID-19, I'll just mention, as has already been said, we don't know. All of us here at Binghamton have been adjusting to working from home this week. So we're sort of still dealing with the repercussions for the spring semester. Of course, we are looking ahead to the fall term, but it's just a bit too early for us to make any kind of determination on that. If anything official is determined, we will be sending that out to everyone who's in the who's been admitted or who's supposed to be coming for the fall term. So I would ask that you please bear with us. Just sort of stay calm and know that we'll be giving you information as soon as we have it. Ayun, do you have anything to add about the RATA process for biomedical engineering?
Sure. We are very similar to the other departments. That for the TA line, it's really competitive, and we're going to be lined up based on the PhD students already in the department. So if you wanted to get in a TA job or interested to having a TA job, please email Guy German, who is our graduate program directors in our department. He can have the more detailed information for you. For the RA job in the research assistantship, is based on the faculty's research program. So in my case, I already start to interview my PhD candidates for my research group. So it depends on the advisors. So some of the advisors may looking for the PhD students already, and some of the advisors waiting for maybe later time of this semester. So it depends on advisor. So if you have that your research interest already known, and then who you work with, please contact that advisor to discuss about your research opportunity.
Thank you very much. One other thing about COVID would just be, I know especially a lot of students from China and now India, there are a lot of questions about students being able to get visas. Please know that we are monitoring that situation. If we need to make any formal deferrals with regard to the spring term or offering fall courses online, that's something that we will determine as a campus. And as I said, if anything official is decided, we will certainly let you know about that. I also saw a question about the Gajwani Fellowship. For students who are applying from India, this is probably something that you've looked at. And just to let you know, the way that that fellowship is determined, there are 2 full-time or full scholarship, tuition scholarships available. Preference is given to students who are applying from Maharaja Sayajuro University, MSU, in Gujarat. And that's because that's the institution that Dr. Gajwani came from. And so he really sort of established this fellowship for students coming from that campus. If we don't have 2 students who apply from that university, then it opens up to all of India. If you have not applied for that and you are interested, I would certainly encourage you to get everything in as soon as possible, because they're going to be starting the review process for that fellowship this week. So please get those materials in as quickly as you're able. Okay, so Mark Fowler, I've got a question for electrical engineering. Same thing about RAs and TAs. How do you find out about those? And also, if you can talk a little bit about the control systems concentration and any scholarships within the department. So I'm sorry, 3-pronged question.
All right, great. I'll try to remember all those, and if I forget them, please prompt me.
Will do.
First of all, welcome virtually to Binghamton. We are getting very comfortable with doing Zoom things here. So there's been some questions about, when will the decisions be made for RAs and TAs? Ordinarily, I would already be in the middle of that, but like I said, we've been dealing with switching to online education and figuring out how to do our jobs remotely. So I do plan to get to that within the next week or so. How does that work? Well, as the others have said, we get a certain number of TA allocations to our department, and most of those are awarded to PhD students, incoming PhD students. Some of those are reserved for MS students, so there is a possibility that you could get one. They're very competitive. It's based upon whatever's in your package when you apply. If you've applied and have been accepted, you will be considered for one of those. The other thing for RAs, those decisions are not made by me. Those are made by individual professors, and they are almost exclusively for PhD students, at least coming in. So if you're an incoming PhD student, chances are you've already been talking to someone who is your intended advisor. If you haven't, that's important for you to do. And let me just say, in passing, for MS students, I saw a chat question pop up. How do I find out who my advisor is? So I don't know how the other departments do it, but for us, if you're an incoming PhD student, you probably should have already connected with somebody. If you haven't, let me know and we'll make that happen. If you're an incoming MS student, I'm the person who deals with your admission. And then once you arrive on campus, my job is kind of done. And I hand you off to Professor Nikulin, who is our graduate program director. Right before classes start, fingers crossed, hoping we will actually physically start. If we don't physically start, we'll virtually start, and he'll do this virtually. But right before classes start, he has an orientation session for incoming graduate students. During that session, he will give you all sorts of advising information, what courses are available, how to sign up for courses, and so forth. And for some indeterminate period of time, he becomes your advisor in the sense of answering questions about how to enroll, what courses to take. As you start to take courses and you connect with professors in your area of interest, then it's up to you to approach them and say, would you be interested in being my advisor for thesis or project and so forth? And if they agree, then at that point, they take over the advising role for courses and so forth. And then control systems, I think. Have I hit everything else except for that? Okay, all right. We have several courses in the control systems area. I don't know what the specific interest is, but there's a sequence of courses. If you've had a single undergraduate course in controls, you're all set to start taking our sequence of control systems courses. Some of the control systems concepts cross over to power systems. So there's a fair amount of connection between those. I don't know what else to say about control systems courses without a more specific question, but if there is one, I'd be happy to answer that.
No, thank you very much, Mark. Madhu and Les, there's also questions about concentrations for computer science. Would you mind just addressing what is available and sort of how students can get into one of those areas of concentration?
Yeah, so, yeah, can you hear me, Maggie? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, so to everyone, so in computer science, we require students to take 4 core courses. And those core courses are in design, analysis of computer algorithms, computer architecture, operating systems, and programming languages. And after that, we have informally identified areas of focus where students can self-select courses in the areas of AI and machine learning. And then we have data science and information systems, cybersecurity, systems, wireless sensors, mobile computing and IoT, and then advanced programming and software design. So these are the areas that we offer courses in, but it's not something that goes in your transcript. It's not a list, something that we'll provide in a transcript saying you have this area of focus. It's up to you to just select these courses because they're electives. Apart from the 4 core courses, you can take electives, and in your resume, you can specify that this is the area of focus you chose. Because previously we wanted to call these certificates, but certificates have a different meaning right now in the SUNY system. So it's totally up to you as to what courses you want to take, what electives you want to take, and how you want to specialize.
Thanks, Madhu. A lot of students are asking questions about course registration. So I'm going to say sort of my understanding of how that works for everyone. And if I'm wrong for any of the departments, I would request that you please jump in. Typically for incoming students, this happens as part of the orientation process. So you are not registering before you come. The one exception to that would be that I believe we have a 4+1 student in the audience. And so for her, that could be done earlier because you already know the process. But for an incoming student, the registration process is always a bit different. And so especially if it's a new system, something that you haven't done before. And so what you can do is when you come to the orientation, again, whether that's physically or virtually, we will sort of figure that out and let you know. But typically in your first semester, there are required core courses that everyone's going to be taking. And so your department will help you register for that as part of the orientation process. Typically for the first semester, you're actually doing like a physical paper registration often. And then once you've seen how that process works, then when you're registering for courses in your second semester onward, you can do that online on your own. You typically would be working with your faculty advisor, whether that's the graduate director or someone else, in advance to sort of select which courses are needed. You want to make sure you're getting everything required to graduate on time, for example, things like that. Does anybody have anything to add on that point, registration and et cetera?
I do. We use Google Forms to ask students to express their preferences for registration and so on, work from those. I would like to ask students, even if we do have to work remotely in the fall, please make sure that none of the emails coming from the CS department go into your spam. So that if you see that there's a Google form to complete about registration, then you're going to get it. And if we do have classes on campus in the fall, there's an orientation day. Some students can't make it in time. We do allow them to submit their requests through that same Google form from their home country while they're still getting here. So please pay attention to any emails we send about registration.
Okay,
There
thank
was
you.
a question, Maggie, about Clark. Do you want to? That's a process, but it's really ran by the graduate school.
Yes, and I did see, I think it was Lisa jumped in with sort of when those are typically released as well. So I think that that's been taken care of. I do see there's a question about co-ops. I want to be very clear, Binghamton University does not officially have co-ops as part of any of our graduate curriculums in engineering and computer science. The majority of students, if you're going to do an off-site internship, would be doing that in the summer between year 1 and year 2 of your master's, or of course in your PhD, you have a lot of summer opportunities. And then if you're, there are some very specific situations where that internship could continue into your second year, but that would only be really at this point for our system science and industrial engineering programs, because there's a lot of requirements that you still need to be a full-time student, different things like that. Hiroki, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Okay. There is a question about the PhD coursework. Could you talk a bit about that, please?
Sure. And this is actually not just SSIE, but many other PhD program at Watson does the same thing. So for PhD students, we have the learning contract system. So the details of the curriculum coursework is to be determined by the student and their advisor and the guidance committee members. But a typical assumption is that the most of the coursework that are required for the master's students should also be taken by PhD students. But having said that, many PhD students already came with some previous master's program, and the chances are they might have taken some or similar required courses in the previous program. So in that case, we often waive the similar materials, and they instead require PhD students to take different kind of the coursework here at Binghamton. So please discuss with your graduate advisors and develop a plan. What kind of coursework is expected to be completed here at Binghamton?
This is Seng-Wan from SSI department as well. So let me just add things. The PhD students do not have any required courses. I mean, in the book. But depending on the research topic that each student is interested in, when you guys are coming to the campus, you can schedule the meeting with the graduate director, and then they can advise you. So what kind of courses you can take it for the first semester. So when you're joining the program in the first semester, you can actually start talking to the different faculty member as your potential advisors, and then you can have another guidance, like what kind of coursework that you have to take it. And then after you complete the list of the coursework, like 1 or 2 semester, and then if you have a research topic that you are going to work on it, and then based on that, your faculty advisor can guide you, which course you should take it or not. And then a PhD committee member will approve that this is a sufficient course requirement that you are completing for your PhD degree. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Hiroki, and I guess also Seng-Wan, I know we have a number of PhD students who are participating in the session, but it was asked specifically about system science. Could you talk about the comprehensive exams and how those topics are determined?
It's really up to your guidance committee. So we don't have the set structure. So each, particularly because our SSI department is so diverse in terms of research topics and application areas, each guidance committee is going to come up with a set of questions. So usually we have both written and oral sessions. And the typical setting is a written part going to take like 2 weeks. Students are going to receive the set of questions. They develop their answers in 2 weeks and then submit the results to the committee. And then there will be an oral session where we keep asking lots of questions to PhD applicants. So that's the typical setting.
Okay.
But it really depends.
Right. Let me add one more thing. So when students are writing the learning contract with the faculty advisor, so the first thing that they have to write in the learning contract is a research topic. So what is a research topic? And then the list of the courses the student have taken. So the PhD committee member will generate the comprehensive exam or the qualifying exam questions based on the research topic and the list of the course that the student have taken. So depending on the different students' background, the comprehensive exam or the qualifying exam question can be different.
Thank you guys very much for the additional clarification. You know, I know a lot of students have questions about the tuition, the bills, how all of that works. This is very clearly outlined on our student account webpage, but in case anybody missed this being talked about earlier in the chat, you usually get your first semester's bill at the beginning of August. So that would be for the fall term. And at that time, you get to choose between paying the full amount at once, which you would typically be doing if you had a bank loan or some kind of fellowship that's covering your tuition bill. And then, or you can choose to do monthly payments. If you do either of those, you do need to pay the bill, I believe, in order to register for courses, but I might have that wrong. Typically, students need to pay this by the time courses are starting, so you have about 3 weeks to get that done. And then the spring term, it would be the same thing. You get the first bill in the 1st of January, and then you can pay from there. There are a ton of resources on the website with regard to everything that we've been talking about, from searching for funding to registering for courses and the areas of concentration that are available. And so for the students who are still in the session, I would definitely encourage you to check out the website. We are running a bit low on time, so please send any final questions that you have. And while students are doing that, I will mention that each department has its own graduate administrative assistant. And so they are an invaluable resource for you when you're looking for information about, you know, registering for courses or anything with regard to sort of what's going on officially. And so I would definitely encourage you to connect with them. All of their contact information is on the website, or if you can't find it, you can always connect with me and I'll send that out. I do see one quick question. Would you be getting a revised I-20 after a financial aid decision is made? That is a possibility, yes, just so that you have documentation about the funding opportunity. If you receive a scholarship or fellowship after you've already been issued an I-20, please connect with us and the graduate school to see if a new document is needed. As was mentioned earlier, and I believe this is true for all of our departments, if you are an incoming master's student, your advisor would be the graduate director, who is the curriculum person. So for computer science, that would be Les. And then for electrical engineering, that would be, as Mark had mentioned, Vladimir, who's one of our other faculty there. So he does everything with admissions, and then you get sort of handed over. And so just a note to you that, you know, it is typically the graduate director that you're working with as a master's student. PhD students, you should have already been in touch with faculty who could be potential advisors for you. If you haven't done that yet, I would strongly encourage you to get working on that. Does anybody want to take a crack at that whole difference between like a thesis and a project?
Well, for computer science, the typical thing is the project. Very few people spend the time. It's quite a lot of work to write up a thesis and do all the extra research and all the extra write-up. So it's very rare in CS. I'll let anybody else comment on that.
So in mechanical engineering, between the thesis and the project option, this is Paul Schroeder, mechanical engineering. Just like every other department, there's just the one degree, and it's just the master's in mechanical engineering. It's the master's of science in mechanical engineering. And there's sort of two paths to that. One is with the project, one is with the thesis. So typically students who pursue the project, or the more, we'll call it more courses focused master's track, that can be completed in 3 semesters to complete the 30 credits that are required for the degree. Students who pursue the thesis option, it's typically more likely a full 2 years of work associated with the thesis option. So the question's often, well, which one should I choose? It ends up being the same degree in the end. Generally speaking, students who anticipate that their master's degree will be their terminal degree, their final degree, and then they're interested in pursuing an industry position afterwards, select the project option. Students who anticipate perhaps furthering their education by pursuing a PhD at Binghamton or elsewhere, typically would pursue the master's with thesis option. Now that doesn't preclude, the opposite scenario as well. We have students who pursue the thesis option, then go into great industry positions. We have students who pursue a project option who carry on into the PhD program. But generally speaking, that's how it works. For mechanical engineering, I anticipate for other programs as well, you don't need to make that decision on day one. You can show up, and if you're admitted into the master's program, we're happy to welcome you into the program. All the departments have orientations and people to help you when you're getting set up. We typically focus on getting you registered, getting you all set for that first semester. Everyone's taking a sort of full load of courses in that first semester. And then generally over that semester, you get a chance to learn more about the program, meet more of the faculty, and then maybe you start to make some decisions on, yeah, I think I'd like to pursue it, the thesis track, and get involved in research because I really, really find this particular faculty member's work really interesting. So I think that's maybe sort of the key point is, and I anticipate that's the same maybe for every department, and others can comment it, that you don't need to make that decision in the master's program. You don't make that decision on your first day or at the time of application. That's the case in mechanical engineering, but maybe others would maybe confirm that as well, or if I'm wrong about that for other departments.
That's the same for CS.
Yeah. Mark Fowler here from ECE, Electrical and Computer Engineering. Everything that Paul just said is exactly the same for ECE. The only thing that I would add is how I like to characterize the distinction between what constitutes a project and what constitutes a thesis. The project is solving an engineering problem by applying techniques and ideas you learned during your graduate program. A thesis is answering a question for which the answer to that question is not known ahead of time. But it also involves literature review and then writing a full-blown thesis, talking about that literature review and how it supports what you did to answer the question, plus a defense. So as Paul said, it's quite a bit more involved. It's 6 credits versus 3 credits, but that's a very misleading difference. So it can take at least an extra semester and possibly a little bit beyond that, depending on how things go when you're answering an unknown question. Thank you.
Yes. So oh yeah, go ahead.
Here, I am Ahan in the BME department. I can agree more than the previous professors in mentioning about the difference between the project and thesis and how the process go. It's very similar in the BME department as well. One thing that I want to add in the BME department you can have like a chance to change from thesis to the projects. If you think that is not enough to do graduate with the thesis options, you have chance to actually change from thesis to the projects. However, it's hard to change in the project to thesis because the thesis required more work and writing like a thesis. So you can actually decide those kind of options with your research advisors when you're doing the master projects and the thesis. So it can be done in sometime in your first semesters. Again, you don't have to decide it as the first day of your admission.
Hello, everybody. This is Sengwan from SSI department. So SSI department is also the same as other department. So the project option requires a less number of courses than the thesis option. But thesis option requires a more rigorous research outcomes. So that changes. And also, I agree with the other faculty. If the students are pursuing the PhD after master, we highly encourage the students go with the thesis option. Okay.
Yeah, CS is a bit different. They want to use all their research results in their PhD dissertation. So they say, their advisors usually just say, get the master's over and done quickly, just do a project, and then we'll start using all this research for your dissertation. That's been the common trend in computer science. department, our department.
Thank you guys very much. And I appreciate getting the departmental perspective on that particular question. So we have gone slightly over time. And so at this point, I'm actually going to thank everyone so much for your participation, students for the questions that you sent in. Thank you so much to all our great faculty, especially for working with us on this new platform. To the students, I will note this is the first time we've tried to record one of these sessions. And so the hope is to get this sent out, the recording sent out to you early next week so that you have it for your reference. We'll also be posting a recording on the website, again, where you registered. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Everyone who participated in this session, faculty and staff, we're all available to help answer questions. As I mentioned, there are departmental contacts through the administrative assistants. And so I would really encourage you, if you have a question, don't fret with it too much. Just go ahead and reach out to us and we'll address it as best we can. As I said, this is a vastly changed world than it was even a week ago. And so we're all sort of dealing with that. We're trying to make sure that we're giving students as much information as possible. And so we appreciate your patience. And also, as I said, do let us know if we can help. Any final comments from any of our faculty or staff participants?
Just thank you for participating, everybody.
Yes. Like I said, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And for the international students, thank you for staying up so late to talk to us. Have a great evening. And we will talk to all of you very soon. Thank you guys so much.